Okay, so let's go ahead and check to see what we learned in chapters 1 and 3. Remember, this is just kind of a review of um, what we learned, just to kind of jog our memory. Also, a reminder that there's only going to be two questions on chapters 1 and 3, so that they're going to be kind of general. So let me just go over real quickly what was covered in chapters 1 and 3. In chapter 1, they started off with the story of ozone and CFCs, and that talked about the correlation that the correlations that we can find using graphs. We also define matter. What is the definition of matter? Remember, matter has two parts to it: has mass and takes up space. In other words, has volume. Okay, so that was covered in chapter 1. Also, we talked about the scientific method, uh, what is observation, hypothesis, how experiments are carried on, and how during experiments there's always an independent variable and a dependent variable. There's also controlled variables or controls that we have in experiments. Then we came up with conclusions. From those conclusions, we can come up with a theory. Remember, basically, a theory is a hypothesis with data behind it. And then that's kind of a higher level of understanding. And then there were laws. Scientific laws are more like mathematical relationships. They're not explanations. The difference between a theory and a law is a theory is an explanation of something that happens, and the law is more of just kind of the mathematical relationship between two things happening. Okay, so that was chapter 1. In chapter 3, we once again we went back to the definition of what is matter. Has mass and takes up space. Talked about the three states of matter, the three main states of matter, and how they were different, how you would define one of them. And we defined them using each state's volume and shape. Either the volume is a definite volume or it takes the volume of its container, and same thing with the shape. If it either has a definite shape or it takes the shape of its container. Right? So, for example, solids have definite volume and definite shape. Liquids have definite volume, but they take the shape of their container, and gases have the volume of their container and they take the shape of their container also. Then we talked about physical properties and what they were, and then chemical properties and what the difference is between those two. So you might want to look that up real quick. Um, then we start talking about the types of matter. We start categorizing matter into basically pure substances and mixtures. And those pure substances can be broken up into elements and compounds. Remember, the difference between pure substances and mixtures is that pure substances have a definite composition, whereas mixtures can have a variable composition. Their composition can change. Pure substances can't. Elements are 100% made of one substance, and compounds are made up of two or more elements, and they always are in the same proportions in any specific compound. Right? The elements are. Mixtures, there's heterogeneous mixtures and homogeneous mixtures, which we will be dealing with more in the second semester. Okay. And then after that, talked about physical changes. Um, and chemical changes. Physical changes do not change the identity of the substance. Examples of a physical change could be changes of state, right? Going from solid to a liquid or liquid to a gas, or vice versa, gas to a liquid, liquid to a solid. Chemical changes change the identity of the substance. Chemical reactions are a good example of that. You start off with two compounds, you put them together, they react, they turn into two new compounds, and because it changed the identity of the substances, now they are chemical changes. We learned also about the law of conservation of mass. And basically, with the law of conservation of mass, the mass of the reactants equals the mass of the products. Um, and we kind of touched on the law of definite proportions and law of multiple proportions, but even when we took the test, chapters 1 and 3, I said don't really worry about that too much. Okay, just kind of know that they're there because they're going to be the ones that are kind of the basis for some of the stuff we do at the end of the semester when we're talking about chemical formulas. Okay, and that's what was covered in chapters 1 and 3.